Hello again. This video is going to talk about how you want to think about and perform these textures to get different values. So there's a couple rules here. You need to have a light, medium, and dark texture depending on where the light is coming in from. Okay, and we'll talk about that. And you need to have on each letter a straight letter, a curved letter, and a letter filled in with dots. So your textures will be either straight lines. Here's some straight lines on these two. These are curved. That one's curved. These are just little curlicues. Here's some curved ones down here. And then you'll have to have one done with just dots. And we'll talk a little bit about each way. Now, remember I said to practice, and again, this is a good reference for you to look at. Oh, we're also going to talk about the horizon line and the cast shadow, that little cast shadow. So we're going to actually work on this one. I'm not going to do very much because I'm going to just show you how to practice it and show you how it kind of finally turns out. So first of all, let's go to our practice sheet, the one that maybe you practiced your ink outlines on. The curved lines, you want to make sure, on all of them, excuse me, you want to make sure your light value is pretty darn light, okay? Because if you make that too dark, the other values have to get way darker. So let's say we're going to do some curved lines, and I'll do kind of, this is my light section. You could even label it light, medium, and then dark. So I'm going to just do some thin, wavy lines kind of going diagonally. And look how far apart they are. They're about as far apart as a pencil thickness. That's okay. The light one will not take you a long time. There you go. Now, the medium one, I'm going to make my lines roughly maybe twice as close together, or half as close together, I should say. And these don't have to be perfectly parallel to each other. I'm just kind of freehanding it. I'm not sure if that's dark enough, but I can always come back and add a few more. My dark one, I'm going to make my lines, my wavy parts a little bit smaller and really let these lines get close together, like as close together as I can. Even if they bump into each other a little bit, that's fine. And we'll see how that worked out. So again, this is a good place to practice. See, they're getting a little bit darker right there. And that's okay. I'm going to watch this. I'm going to go like this because I want more of a wavy thing to happen over there. So you can see how this is definitely getting darker. Another way to make this darker is to, like we did on the dynamic outlines, and this is totally a good thing to do, I'm going to just go over those lines again. And again, this is impossible to do perfectly. There are some of these lines that I'm going to go over them just right, and others I might miss a little bit. Let me get about halfway through here. See, it's getting a little bit darker up here. If I wanted to get darker up here, I can just kind of go back and forth, make those lines up here a little thicker. And then down here, I can just go back and forth a few times to make that a little bit thicker. Carefully, carefully. I think up here I can go over a little bit more, so there's little adjustments you can always make. And like I said, I think my medium tone needs a little more of a darker quality to it. See, these two are very much alike. So then I'm going to try to go in between each line, at least the ones that have room for it. Or I could have just made each line a little thicker. So I think that's better between light, medium, and dark. They are really different values. Dark doesn't mean black, and light does not mean white. So this is a really good way to practice. And look how big it is. It's not very much practice time. It really isn't. Okay, for straight lines, remember you have to do one letter with curves, one letter with straight, and then one letter with dots, and it doesn't matter which one is which. So that doesn't matter a bit. We'll talk about how to place the values in a second. Here's one I like. I'm just going to block out some random shapes and just block out some random shapes here too. And block out some, just again, some random shapes. And I'm just selecting these textures kind of at random. You can completely steal one of these ideas or make up your own. It's completely fine either way. So with my light, again, I'm going to keep my lines pretty far apart. In each section, I go in a different direction. So that way, I can go in any direction I choose, as long as it kind of stops at the edge of that little random shape that I made. Then I'm going to make these. I learned something over here, so I'm going to make my medium ones get definitely a little closer to each other. And this one might go in some other random. You don't have to follow one of the lines. I'm going to go kind of diagonally here. Okay, we'll call that good. Over here, because I would finish over here, I'm going to make my lines thicker. And it'll have a darker feel. So again, I learned something over here. I want to make these definitely thicker. Then I can go in another direction here. I think this is a kind of a neat texture. But again, you don't have to use the ones that I'm going to do. Okay, so that's going to wind up being my dark one. It's a good idea to finish. Now with dots, it's just that. Dots are going to be far apart, closer together, and really close together. When you do dots with this kind of a pen, you don't want to hold it straight up. You want it to be at a slight angle, just like you're writing your name. And you don't want to do dots so hard that you hear it. You just want to touch the paper. Just touch, 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 touch. And whenever you do dots, you want to think sprinkle. So if you were to sprinkle some pepper on this paper, it would just kind of randomly land, right? You would not have little clusters. So here in my medium, I'm going to move left and right, up and down, over here, over there, try to fill in where some of the empty spots are. And try to make it an even distribution. So you don't have a little clump right here in the middle. So now I have to be careful not to make a bunch of dots go right on top of each other like that. So I'm going to guess that that is my medium tone. It's always safe to go lighter than you think you need to. Then over here, now you can barely hear my pen touching, but that's okay. I'm not banging on the table. Okay, so I'll just do half of this because it takes a little longer. So you can start to see it develop a darker. Now, there is still, even though it's dark, there's kind of a texture in there. It's kind of speckled, you might say. You can still see the white of the paper showing through here and there a little bit. When you do dark dots, you do not have to make it look like it got painted in completely like that. You don't have to do that. All right, now that we have kind of some practice done, you're not going to hand that practice in, but it's a very good idea. So when you start working on your final, you have a good idea of what you're doing. Now let's talk about light source and where the darks and lights and mediums go. And you can take a pencil and literally mark it. So I have my shadows on this side. So that means my light, and you don't have to make these marks on your paper, but I'm just illustrating. My light is coming in from this side. So I have to think everything on the other side is the darkest side. So the same side as the shadow, since the shadow is dark, the letters over here is going to be the dark side, and anything that goes along that plane, that same plane. So if you want to, you can lightly, there's a dark side. I think under, if something is underneath, like under an umbrella, under a roof, that can be dark and dark. And under here can also be dark. That little slice right there. However, I'll show you, it's a good idea sometimes if you have to go a dark section right next to a dark section, it's a good idea to let this dark section get a little bit lighter down here so these two don't blend into each other completely. And I can show you that in a second. So this will be the light section, the front of the F. That's an L for light, it's not a V. All right, so this one just has darks, and I kind of broke my own rule, didn't I? We need a medium section, so let's make these two medium. So sometimes we have to reconsider. So dark, dark, and two medium sections. And these two medium sections get broken up by the light section, so that'll be easy. The front will be the light. We can do this side dark, and again, we can do, kind of like we did here, two medium sections on this H. And everybody's letters will have kind of a different feel as far as what goes light and dark. And S is a little tricky. On this back side of the S, we have to do some dark stuff. Dark down here and dark down here. But again, we want some dark and medium and light to happen. So maybe this shadow, and this is supposed to be a shadow right here, I can make that kind of a medium section. I can go kind of light here, and it's going to be kind of darker here. The front of the S is going to be a light section again. Maybe this light section needs to be just a little bit darker than this one, so they're not the exact same. Let's see, this is also, this is a shadow back here, so that can be dark. Hopefully you can see my little marks that I'm making. Let's get in there. This part right here, let's make it a medium section, so it's not the same as the one right next to it. The whole front of the S is going to be light. That's going to be light. Then this is a shadow also. That's a shadow created by the top of the S. So let's make our shadow dark. This one right next to it can be medium, and the same kind of thing can happen down here. So this one gets a little complicated. Right here, I can show you an S that we did. If you think of where that curve is happening, that's where we can let it transition from medium and let it get darker right there. On that dark side. Some people have it on the lighter side, or you can let it be a little highlight. See that little highlight? I can let this be a little bit lighter right here. Let the dark fade away and let the medium fade away. So this one is actually around the classroom a couple times. You can go take a look at that. It's also in the slideshow. So now that you have some practice, and we have determined, and you can draw this very lightly, it'll erase very easily when you, or after you ink it, and let the ink dry for, a minute before you start doing that. Where'd my pen go? There it is. So if I'm going to do this one in curved lines, remember I'm going to do those wavy lines. So I told you I would show you how to get lighter down here. I think a good thing to do first might be to do my really dark section down here first. Get it nice and dark with my small little wavy lines. On this one, it's kind of like little S's. Now down here, I don't want this to be quite as dark as that. So I'm going to let just these curves, let me see, I'll kind of go in a different direction also. They're still curves. I'm going to let them be just a little bit farther apart from each other. And as they move away, I can let them get thicker and closer to each other to fill in that darker section. I'm not going to do much, don't worry. Okay, so I think it can start to get even darker here. Okay, so my lines are going to be really close together and thicker. Well, my light section, remember those need to be really far apart, like the thickness of a pencil. So I'll just do a couple. That can be a representation of the light area. In the medium section, again, that was my phone, can be some lines that are a little closer together than, I don't like how that wave is happening, so I'm going to make more of a wave here and put kind of a wave right inside there too. So this is turning out to be more of a medium section. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Please ask for help in class. I don't have time in this video to finish this, but hopefully you get the idea. Again, use these. Here's what it's going to kind of look like. I'm going to show another quick video on the horizon line and the shadow. That'll be a really fast one. There you go.